Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to talk about the ways that I've brought creativity to work and the many benefits of that, and hopefully in the process kind of inspire you to do the same thing. So when I was in the hiring process for my first role at Automatic, the hiring manager said to me, "Tess, you understand this isn't a creative role." And I was like, I make any role creative. And I'm not sure that I really believed it at the time, but the idea of this kind of sent me on this journey of self-exploration about what creativity meant to me. And in turn, it made me realize how valuable it is to be creative at work. Just hopefully this loads. Oh, here it is. Okay, great. So this is a visualization of how I kind of see creativity. It's about filtering what is happening around you and these inputs through who you are and your skills and your experience, and then sort of forming that into an output that you share with the world. So it's like taking in inputs, whether it's going to the art gallery or reading a book or having a conversation, and then you're filtering it through your own unique sense of who you are, what your experience is, what your background is, you know, your identity, those kinds of things. And then it's creating that into some kind of output that you're then sharing. And so it's a pretty broad definition of creativity. It's not just like painting a picture. So I want you to I'm just going to pause for a few seconds. I want you to think about, is there something in your life that falls into this definition of creativity? And just have a think about it. So I draw a lot of comics. It's pretty much my favorite artistic medium, but I also am an actor and a crafter, a photographer, a writer. I do a lot of different things, but I really love comics. And so I made this one, which I'll read it out in case you're a bit far at the back and can't see it. But so it says, "No offense, but grown-ups aren't very creative." And that's my son talking to me. I do make comics of the actual things that my kids say. So my son has definite opinions about who is creative. But of course, there are no limits on creativity. Anyone can be creative. So at Automatic, we have a creed. And one of the lines of this creed says, "I will communicate as much as possible because it's the oxygen of a distributed company." And what I kind of figured out is that creativity is my oxygen. I sort of need it to survive. So if I can honor that creativity on a regular basis, then I feel like I'm just more me, I'm more at peace, and I just feel kind of better. I feel like I'm breathing. Creativity, it requires really knowing yourself because of this whole thing of having inputs that you're filtering through who you are. It sort of requires that real knowledge of yourself, and for a lot of people, myself included, that is like your life's work. You know, you're on that path towards truly knowing yourself. But even more than that, with creativity, it's important to know yourself, but then also honor that knowledge of yourself authentically and like show up as that with vulnerability and without apologies, and just be showing up as your full self. So it's not necessarily an easy thing. But even when you might have all this creativity outside of work, a lot of us leave it behind when we go to work because we might think that's just my hobby that I just do on the side, or it's not very important, you know, what I'm doing at work is the really important bit, or maybe even that you're sort of doing it on the side and it's what you're really passionate about, but your work is kind of, you wish you could have more of that passion in your work. So, you know, sometimes at work we get so busy and results driven and, you know, everything has to sort of ladder up to something that we kind of don't think about creativity. It gets deprioritized. But what I've learned is that you don't need a creative role to be creative at work. There are ways to bring creativity to any job. And that thing that you do that maybe you don't think belongs at work could be the thing that makes you invaluable. So there are some sort of ways that I've found in my life that creativity has helped me to stand out at work, to be fulfilled at work, and also to stay valued. So if we're holding that part of ourselves back, that creativity, we're missing opportunities to do all of these things. So you might be thinking like, okay, I get it. Creativity at work is a great thing, but how do I actually do it? What does it actually look like to put creativity to work? Well, we're going to start at the start, which is standing out and getting the job that you want. So 73% of organizations say that creative thinking is an increasingly important skill for future success. And this is from a study or a survey that was done by the World Economic Forum. So this means that recruiters and hiring managers are going to be looking for creative thinkers when they're hiring for any role. So if you show your creative skills when you're applying for a job and interviewing for a job, then you're putting your creativity front and center, and you're showing that I am this creative person rather than just telling. You're actually showing that. Creativity, there's sort of these three characteristics, I think, about creativity that can make you stand out as a creative person and make you memorable to prospective employers and to colleagues. So creativity is authentic because it involves that definition that I said before about filtering inputs through your own experiences and skills and taste. It's impossible to fake creativity. There's only one you, so it's authentic to just you. And I kind of think that it's the ultimate antidote to imposter syndrome, because if you're being really true to yourself, then there is only one you. You can't be an imposter in that life. It's also really unique. So since it's tied to you as a person and it's filtered through all of those things that we talked about earlier, it can't be compared with anyone else. It's a way that you can show and not just tell who you are. And also creativity is diverse because everybody's going to have a different creative output. So it's inherently diverse because it has that personal aspect. So when you apply for a job at Automatic, the job description says to make sure that your application really stands out. So I really took this to heart, and this was my application. So in a previous role, I was applying for a promotion, and I had put together a bunch of images and text. I just thought, I'll do something a little bit different, and it was also a sort of creative role. So yeah, and that really worked in that case, and it really stood out, and it also just made me feel like the medium is the message. I'm not just talking about who I am, I'm also showing who I am. So I sort of built on that success, and I spent an inordinate amount of time making this comic book that showed who I was, talked about my experience, why I was the right fit for the role. I didn't send any cover letter or anything else in the email, so I just attached this to an email and said, here's my application. And I just figured that people were getting the real me. If they didn't want that, then that's fine. I could look somewhere else. But I had an amazing response to it. It showed what kind of person that I was, but it also showed how much effort I put into something that I really want. And so spoiler alert, 8 years later, I'm still at Automatic. I got the job. After you get through that original sort of interview phase, you do a trial project. And in my trial, I talked about some customer personas. And so I decided to create these characters and give them names and backstories and to illustrate them as part of my trial presentation. So it was just more of a continuum of showing another part of my skills and showing them the real me. So back to that hiring manager, I think I proved that I could make this non-creative role a creative one. But yeah, actually over my time at Automatic, I have moved into a more creative role because I've shown this creative side of myself. So you might be thinking, okay, that's great if I'm looking for a job, but I already really like my job. I want to stay in my job, and I want to just figure out ways to be more creative at work. So what's the point of bringing creativity to the job that I already have? So coming to my second point, creativity really helps you feel fulfilled at work. When you bring creativity into your work, you enjoy that work more, and it just feels better to be at work. it is proven that happy workers are 13% more productive. So this is from a study by Oxford University. So this is a great stat to show your boss if you're ever like, this is why I'm being creative at work. And the increased productivity, you know, it's great. Your boss will like that. But it's not just about that. It's also about personal satisfaction. And there is a lot of value in just your own happiness and joy as a person. And there are plenty of ways to inject that into your role, even if you have a non-creative role. So, a few things about creativity in this category of being fulfilled at work. Here are some characteristics about it. So it's joyful. And it is really valuable on a personal level to just make us happier humans. Happiness is really important, and creativity reduces burnout at work, makes your work more personally meaningful to you. It's also caring. The way that you do something shows a lot about who you are, and it shows that you care enough about that work and about that project when you bring that creative energy to it. And it's also productive. It's valuable on this professional level because happy people are more productive in the workplace, 13% to put a number on it. So one of the reasons that I really like doing presentations, both internally and externally as well, like this one, is that I sort of use this opportunity to make my slide deck into an art project. And you've probably seen that already, but I want to show you some other ones that I've done. So what I love about doing this kind of art projects is that it not only is it just personally fulfilling for me, it's fun to do it, but it also kind of adds another layer to the presentation. Makes it more personal, adds like another layer of meaning. Sometimes it's just fun to look at the slides, you know, and enjoy them as art. So in 2020, during the pandemic, I was asked to speak at this virtual conference and on content marketing for small teams, which is what I was doing. And, you know, during the pandemic, as with many other parents with young children at home, I spent a lot of my time looking at Lego and playing with Lego and tripping over Lego and cleaning up Lego and just Lego. Yeah, same. Stepping on Lego, yeah, exactly. So I was like, I had Lego on the brain. And so I made these little Lego scenes and I made lettering out of Lego and photographed it for this slide deck. And my kids think that I have the strangest job, but it was fun to do that, you know, in front of them and with them. So there was, these are from some internal presentations that I've done when we have meetups. We often do flash talks. And I just saw this tutorial about doing digital chalkboard style lettering, and I thought I really wanted to learn that. So I made it my slide deck. The talk was about when I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and I got the $20,000 question wrong. So that's a whole other story. And then the one on the right is another flash talk I did, which was teaching people how to do the last shoelace tying method that you'll ever need. And I'm happy to teach you later if you want to know that. And for that one, I really I enjoy that kind of quirky illustration style of WikiHow. And so I was sort of referencing that in my illustrations for demonstrating this shoelace tying method. And yeah, it brings me extra joy when people comment on the visual style of the presentation. But I also think that it just helps keep people engaged. It's something interesting to look at along with the presentation and hopefully sort of adds another layer of meaning. I spoke at the Inbound conference, which is a big marketing conference, and it was a fairly dry topic. It was about content marketing and customer success and the ways that they can kind of collaborate together. So I was like, let's make them into characters who fall in love and go on a journey together. So there was a content marketing character and a customer success character, and they went on this journey that was kind of the structure of the talk. So that was an extra bonus that it gave me that kind of the literal sort of map of the talk as well. Last year, I spoke at another marketing conference called B2B Forum, and I spoke about leading remote creative teams. And because I was talking about remote work, which is what we do at Automatic, I was talking about a lot of communication tools. So I had this crazy idea that I would illustrate like obsolete communication technology. And again, these were sort of like the sections of my talk. But it wasn't enough to just illustrate them. I decided to hand embroider them. And so these were actual embroidery that I did, and then I scanned them in. Creative people in the room understand this, right? Like, you get that you just want to go the extra mile on this project. So yeah, lots of nights in front of the TV, embroidering. My kids also, yet again, like, what are you doing? You have the weirdest job ever. This talk, this is very meta, I know, but I, again, saw this tutorial for doing digital paper cut style illustrations. And so I thought, yeah, I really want to try that out, and it takes forever, but it's just really fun and I really enjoy doing it. And I do a lot of long haul flights, so it's really good to do this on those flights. Oh yeah, and again, I went the extra mile and I animated them because that's what we do. So it probably seems weird to people that I spend so much time on these slides. It was definitely weird to my kids. But I feel like, as well as being just creatively fulfilling for me, it also shows how much I care about the topic and how much I care about communicating that in a way that is authentic to me and unique to me. I used to work on our support documentation, and there's this awesome book about comics called Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. It's a sort of seminal work. If you're at all interested in comics, you should definitely check it out. And that book is written as a comic book. And so it really inspired me to talk about how we might use comics in documentation. And then, so I made a comic book about it, and then this was my slide deck for the talk. It's a bit too much there for me to read out, but anyway, there's a lot of stuff there about using comics in documentation. And presentations like this are just part of how my creative needs are fulfilled at work. But looking back, I realized that there's kind of a double return, because I feel this personal joy, but I feel like people also remember the talk a bit more clearly because of that creativity. Sasha, who's here in the audience, who works at Automatic with me, created something called the Automatic Creators Club, and A8C is how we sort of abbreviate Automatic. So the Creators Club was formed for anybody who worked at Automatic who wanted to work on a creative project, to come together and work on a project for 12 weeks on your own project, but in this kind of accountability group. So we could work on, like, sort of support each other to break down the project into stages, to show our work as we were going along, to ask questions, to get motivation, things like that. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, we had a virtual art show, which was on this website. So we've done this twice, and so far, hopefully more. But it's been really great because it's a way that I can be creative at work, but to meet other like-minded people at work who are also creative, and then to produce things. So I made these 2 comic stories as part of each of these cohorts of the Creators Club, and then published them online and put them on my own site as well. And so it just brought this enjoyable additional kind of thing to my work. So creativity can bring personal fulfillment to work. Hopefully I've proven that. But we're also always under pressure to deliver business results. So how can creativity help us do that? So I have some ideas about this. And it's all about staying valued at work through showing your creativity. So it's actually proven that creativity can have real business value. I have another stat for this. So creative companies are 67% more likely to grow. This is from a McKinsey study. And it means that companies in the top quartile for creativity, and this was judged via the Cannes Lion Award, they're 67% more likely to achieve revenue growth. So again, I have 3 sort of characteristics of creativity that can fall under this bucket of staying valued at work. Creativity is playful. So you have this environment of play at work with creativity that leads to lateral thinking and to problem solving. And that means that creativity often leads you to have novel ideas. It's also about communication. It enhances communication. So when you think of creative ways to deliver a message, and that might be in your external marketing. I am now a marketer, so I have a lot of examples of how I use creativity in marketing, but also just through internal communications. It helps you to really cut through the noise and stand out when you're using your creativity. And then also for team building. I love being part of a team. I love team bonding activities and spending time on creative things that really benefit my team, or even just bring them joy. And through that, you demonstrate that you care about your teammates, and it also builds trust because creativity takes time and you're investing that time. So it's really that, not just time, but also attention. When you're paying attention to people on your team through creativity, it can really strengthen those team bonds. So I sort of actively, I'm looking out for projects at work, both big and small, that I can lend my creativity to. So for example, internal communications on P2. So at Automatic, we use P2, which is just a network of WordPress.com blogs that we use instead of email. So we're doing a lot of communicating to each other about projects and updates and collaborating and discussing things. So I'm one of those inbox zero people, and I was asked to do a learning session about it. So I wrote this comic to kind of encourage people to come to the session. So I'll read it out. It's my supervisor saying, "Hi Tess, what you up to?" And I say, "Hey Melissa, I heard about this new thing called Inbox Zero." And she's thinking about all of her, tab-pocalypse that she has. And she says, "Oh, how does that work?" And I say, "I think you just do this, select all, delete." And yeah, I'm feeling pretty zen. So, comics don't always have to be funny, but I do like to be funny. So it just, I like doing this kind of thing for an internal communication. It does take more time, for sure. So I don't do it for every single time that I'm writing a P2, but for this purpose, it sort of engages people, gives them an idea of the tone of the session as well. I made this other comic for a P2 post. A colleague saying, "I really think that we should publish documentation about this new code review process." And I say, "Just ship it." And I'm the ship it squirrel. I added that because nobody got it, which is no slight on my drawing skills at all. I didn't take it like that at all. But I just thought I'd add it there for a reference. So I'm the ship it squirrel. And my colleague is saying, "Don't you think we should just ship it?" And then I say, "Oh, okay, fine, like to the P2. We'll go and explain it in the P2. So just, I don't know, fun things like this that I do. Here's a bunch of other ones that I've done where I'm juggling new tasks. This was like when I was talking about a new role that I was taking on. I was talking about collaborating at work, but it was really all me doing the collaboration. Another comic which was about this new kind of onboarding that we were talking about doing. So I just really like sort of visualizing ideas in this way. And one thing I really love about comics is that you really distill the message down to very few words and then pairing that with pictures to have that sort of interplay of both things. So that's something that I really love about comics. So people at work started to notice these, as I guess you would, in this internal communication. And then I got asked to use my creativity more in our external communication too. So one example is that I illustrated some diagrams that we were doing in our content. And I feel like, even though these aren't real, these are not real stats, this is just giving a personal touch or just a sort of fresh take where anyone who's making content, you want your content to sort of stand out in this sea of sameness. So using your creativity to do that can be really valuable for work. One of our designers noticed my comics and asked me to draw these cartoons for our marketing site, which we don't use them anymore, but we did on pages that compared us to our competitors. And so the goal of these pages was to highlight how we were different to our competitors. So it was a really great place to be creative. So in the first one, there's somebody getting a massage and there's other people sort of working away madly. And they're saying, "It looks like Kate's project already launched." So the next one, someone's saying, "Wow, Joey already assembled their project team," and there's someone around the desk, in the meeting room. And then in the third one, they're kind of in the lunch room, And someone has this gigantic sandwich and they're saying, they assured me I'd need all this. And all of these, you know, they don't really make that much sense when they're on their own, but in the context of the page, you know, they worked well. Another one was one of our support engineers had this great analogy about how our platform did vertical scaling or horizontal scaling, where vertical scaling was like a house where people were yelling at each other and then you sort of added stuff on the house. And horizontal scaling was a village where you could sort of infinitely expand. And so I was asked to draw these comics to sort of illustrate the differences between these two things. And I really love like XKCD comics, and it was intentionally supposed to be sort of referencing or in that style, which technical people really love as well. So we were hoping that it would sort of resonate with that audience. There is a sponsor video that we did, which is, I think, playing somewhere around here at WordCamp. I wrote the script for our video, for our WordPress.com video, and then because I do voiceover acting, I just recorded the voiceover to make sure that it was the right length, and that ended up getting used in the video. So if you see this video and you hear me and it sounds like me, it is. So I just, you know, these are just opportunities that happen around the place where you're really sort of helping somebody out sometimes if you hop in there and say, well, this is something that I can do with my creativity. And the opportunities just came about because I showed my creativity at work. And any chance that I had, I just was like, I can do this, but I can also do it creatively. And showing how my particular creative output could enhance communications and make them stand out kind of got them noticed. Another way is in the team building that I talked about. So, you know, as I said, I'm really passionate about team bonding, and creativity is one way that I can really show that I care about the team that I'm in. So one example is that at my very first grand meetup, which is where the whole company comes together in person, one of my colleagues was offering to take headshots of people in break times. And she was so overwhelmed with the people who were standing up there in a line to get headshots taken. So I decided to jump in and help out. And I've just kept doing it at meetups after that, because what I really love about it is that you get to connect with somebody, even just for a short amount of time. It's a really intimate connection where they're looking right down your lens, you're sort of trying to get the best angle on them. And some people tell me they've never had headshots before, so this is like a really valuable thing that they get. Or that, you know, they have never liked the way they looked before in a headshot. So I love seeing these like pop up on the internet around the place. People use them for their LinkedIn profile or whatever. So it's just a really cool little moment that I get to have with my teammates. I've also taken the opportunity to draw colleagues, and usually for internal communication. Sometimes just doing these little doodles or something where it doesn't take as much time as a comic, but showing them that I care enough about them to spend time drawing them. It sounds like a little thing, but one of my favorite artists, Wendy McNaughton, says that drawing is looking and looking is loving. And so it's this idea that when you put your attention to something enough to draw it, then you're really demonstrating that you care about it, and that really helps with team bonding. We all work with WordPress, and Wapoo is this great vehicle for creativity. You know, there are so many different Wapoos out there, and I created this one for our team, which is a writer, because we have this content team. We're basically all doing writing. And I just love the idea of having a team mascot, you know, so this is something that is a really sort of easy thing to do. You know, it's very accessible if you want a way to get started somewhere with creativity at work. I wanted to do a quick note about AI. I have a whole talk about AI and creativity that I did last year at WordCamp Sydney, and I'm doing again this year at a different conference. I have a lot to say about this, and I'm not going to go into it in too much depth right now, but I think what's important to remember is that while AI is a great tool for creative people, I use it all the time for many, many different types of things. Creativity can't be generated by a machine. So it's not a replacement for your creativity, because going back to my definition earlier of creativity, you are filtering those inputs through who you are, and that is unique to you as a person, and that has to be human. So in my opinion, AI is not inherently creative. It can be a great creative tool. But I just wanted to note that. I have a lot more to say about that in a different talk. So I'm hoping that by now you're thinking that creativity can help me stand out, help me be fulfilled at work and stay valued. So why would you hold back? Hopefully you're thinking, I'm in. This slide is not working, but creativity isn't just for certain job titles. It's a skill, it's a mindset, it's a way of showing up that's available to everyone. So thinking back to that original conversation with my hiring manager, that I didn't really believe at the time that I could make any role creative, but I now believe that I can. And I think there should be more creativity in the world, even at work. This slide is just the word creativity with confetti. So just imagine that in your mind. So organizations also really need to nurture and develop creativity and imagination in workers, just as much as we invest in technological innovation. Oh, cool, thank you. The next slide is fixed. I will go back to this one though. So there is this creativity gap where 73% of organizations recognize the importance of creativity, but only 9% are actually doing great things to ensure that creativity of the organization keeps pace with the technological innovation. This is from a Deloitte Insights report from 2024. So I think it's a really important point as well that if you're in this position in your organization where you're able to nurture creativity, it's really important and we should be doing more on it. The way that you take in the world and you filter it through who you are and you turn it into something new, it can not only make your work more joyful, but it can also make it more effective. And in this world where AI is taking over so much, that kind of creativity can't be copied. I've talked a lot about P2 in this, or a fair bit about P2 in this talk. And so I wanted to also say that I made this comic book all about P2. Again, it's a character. She's kind of a hippie because she democratizes communication. So, and I love having physical things to share at a talk. So I had these made up as zines, and I have a whole stack of them. So if you come and see me at the end, you can take home a zine on P2. Yeah, I didn't think that I'd ever get to make comics at work, but it just goes to show that that thing that you think doesn't belong at work might just be the thing that makes you essential. So creativity can help you to stand out and get the job that you want because it's inherently authentic, unique, and diverse. And then once you've got the job, being creative at work can also help you feel fulfilled because it brings joy and it shows that you care about your work and it makes us all more productive. And creativity has real business value because it enables play, it enhances communication, and it strengthens team bonds. So when you put creativity to work, you'll be more valued for being yourself. So I hope I've inspired you to be creative at work. This is just a little thank you slide. It was a cool animation, but you can just, again, picture it in your mind. Thank you so much for attending my session. I share words and pictures on my website at tessneedham.com and then at Instagram on Tess Needham Art. If you would like to connect with me, I'd love that. And we do have some time for questions, so I'd love to discuss this more with you if anyone has questions. Thank you very much. There is a microphone here. If you have a question, you can come forward to the microphone, but we just have a few minutes, so. Yay. Hello.
Hi, Tess. My name is Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Thank you so much for this. This is really inspiring. I think you've met your goals. I'm going to come at this with a little bit of pessimism, cynicism.
Cool.
As someone who's worked in communications like my whole life, so much of what I create in my mind is ephemeral. And there's always something else to do. There's more tasks coming down. There's more client demands, whatever it may be. And you touched on this a little bit, but I guess what I'm looking for, a little bit more inspiration from you is kind of getting over that hump of, for example, you showed all these awesome slide decks that you've done. I can't imagine putting that effort into something that is going to be seen at one team meeting once, and then that's it. I think it's awesome that you make the zines. Like, that's such a cool example of like making it something more concrete. But I'm just curious how you kind of like decouple creativity from that constant productivity and results-oriented approach towards business, towards work, so that you can kind of free your mind to do that something creative, put this effort in without the idea of like, oh, well, it has to live on forever, or it has to immediately result in some kind of business outcome.
Yeah, really good question. Well, actually, so like I'll let you in on a little secret, which is that this is the second time I've presented this, but the first time was an internal presentation and much shorter. So I already sort of had the bones of this, and I expanded on it more. And like all good content marketers, we reuse content all of the time. I've definitely used the same kinds of, like my presentations, I've used them again. So that's one aspect, is that I've sort of made the most out of a presentation that I've done. I've also, all of these presentations, I think all of them, most of them, I have then written up as a blog and published on my site. And so I've got something to kind of point back to. So I guess you could argue the internet is just ephemeral, but at least it's sort of there to point back to. But the other thing that maybe comes into your question a little bit is that I found that like the more that I practice my creativity, the more it makes it accessible for me in lots of different situations. So I try to remember that like even if I'm putting all of this time and effort into something like a conference presentation that, I mean, sure, it lives forever on YouTube, but it's not like it is ephemeral, like you say, that it is, it's almost like, exercising that part of my brain that allows me then to be more creative, more free in the actual like tasks of work that I'm asked to do. So I'd encourage you to think about it like that. Like you're keeping your creativity rolling along so that it is more accessible for you in everyday life. Yeah, does that help?
Also, my fiance makes fun of me for how I tie my shoes, so I will take you up on that.
Oh yeah,
So.
awesome. And I guess the other thing about that too is that, like I mentioned, I do a lot of this stuff like watching TV at night. I don't usually have work hours to put this time in that I do, and it helps me in my brain to think of it as like a personal creative project that's feeding my creativity, that's like enjoyable for me, and not that this is work hours that need to be accountable for something. So that really helps me as well. It's just kind of part of who I am and bringing my work and life, not like separating work and life, but like hopefully one makes the other more enjoyable. Hi.
Hi, I'm Tom. I'm an independent contractor.
Hi, Tom.
And first of all, your drawings are terrific. They remind me of, I'm sure you've heard of Hugh McLeod at Gaping Void.
Hugh McLeod at?
Gaping Void.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a creative agency.
Yeah.
I started screenshotting his,
oh, cool.
his drawings, and I have them all over my computer for inspiration. So,
awesome, thank you.
Your work is just as good, if not better, than Hugh's.
Ah, thank you very much.
Second of all, just a random question. Let's say you're doing a performance assessment at the end of the year, writing down contributions and strengths. I enjoy drawing illustrations or cartoons that helps improve morale and company culture. And the response to that is, well, how do you quantify that value? How would I answer that?
So you're drawing cartoons of your colleagues, or?
Well, similar. Let's say I started doing what you do, and just for the purpose of team morale. But then the pushback would be, well, how are you able to quantify that value? I mean, is it translating into conversions and click-throughs?
Yeah.
Is that even worth responding to?
I think all the marketers in the room will know how hard it is sometimes to measure everything that we do. And there are some things that you just can't measure. So I don't know if I have a great response to that, but I would just say that, there are some things that you do because they just make people feel good, or they make you feel good, or they, I think, teams that are more bonded are going to be more productive. It's you know, something that brings me a lot of joy is just to be friends with the people that I work with and to build those bonds. So yeah, I don't know that you can trace that through to like ROI, but I'd encourage you to keep doing it because it makes me happy to know that you do that. I'm sure it makes the people happy as well to know that you're doing that.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I just wanted to give you
Hi.
a compliment. I am
Oh.
so obsessed with your little embroidered icons.
Oh.
That is phenomenal.
Thank you. Oh, thanks very much. I also made those into a zine, and I gave out that zine at that conference as well. So that's another way of like what my previous boss would call 9-livesing the content.
Hi.
Hi.
Same. I loved your drawings and
thank
everything.
you.
It's super cool. I would love to hear just if you have any advice about how to maintain your creativity and work like within a very strict brand. Like, I don't know if you have to do that for internal communications, but obviously externally. I work on a website and I love being creative, but I also love maintaining our brand, and it can be a hard line to walk. So just any advice about that?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've been able to use my drawings and stuff in content that's it's less important that it's branded, like for instance, blogs or documentation or something like that, where the brand aspect is not as under scrutiny. But like I showed those single panel cartoons that I did, and I worked with our designer on those. And one of the things that we did was just give them the brand colors. So if it depends on how, I don't know if you're in charge of brand or if somebody else is, but I guess it depends on how open they are to that kind of thing. But also like framing things as an experiment, you know, with those, we framed them as an experiment. Like, let's just see how these go and what engagement they get, and do they get shared, and like, do people hang out on the page for longer because we do these, and being able to frame it as an experiment, but also I guess tying it into the brand in some way, whether it's using the fonts or the colors of the brand. But it does require like somebody, the person I guess who holds the keys there, to be a bit more open-minded. So I guess it sort of depends, but there might be other ways that you can find, like, often the website is like more controlled, but then social might be seen as more of a playground. So yeah, I would look at like different channels. Also trying to see if you can fit what you're doing into brand colors or things like that. Yeah, or also just consider your sort of creative things to be like your broad playground where you're just messing around, and then maybe that's just like the brainstorm, and then you kind of edit it down into what you're doing for the brand. I think I'm about out of time. But yeah, don't forget to come up and get, I'll just be down there. I've got a whole stack of these zines if you would like one. Thank you.